It's been a couple years since Chevrolet first announced the Blazer EV. It was introduced for purchase for the 2024 model, and there are some changes that are coming to the 2025. While the car itself is pretty solid, there are a few small tweaks that I think Chevrolet could make to take it from an EV that you might consider to an EV that you absolutely should consider. And in this video, I want to unpack the Blazer EV and help you figure out if it's worth the buy. Pricing for the Blazer EV in Canada starts at $60,300 versus $48,800 down in the States. And that's before you look at any sort of provincial or federal incentives. So the overall cost is going to depend on if you're in the LT, the RS, or for the 2025 model, the exciting new SS that kicks the performance up a notch and a half. I do really like the LED light bar that stretches across the hood. You've got black all the way throughout, so some black glossy highlights that follows all the way throughout the middle of the vehicle. Technology-wise, there's quite a little bit that you'll find inside the vehicle, but not some features that you would think. So there's no forward sensing system inside of the vehicle whatsoever, but you will find a front-facing camera. There are side-mounted cameras and a backup camera. So there's a full 360 cam available. And you can even break up the 360 view, looking at the sides. There's a hitch view as well, or you can just go front, top-down view, which is pretty neat. You're not going to find features like park assist inside of the Blazer EV either. That is something I would kind of like to see, because I was in the GMC Acadia last week, and that had full park assist, which was amazing. I get it, not everyone's going to need park assist, but for people with mobility issues, limiting yourself for sure by not having that option available in any trim level of the Blazer. Underneath the hood of the Blazer, there's a little lever you've got to pull twice in order to unlock, and you've got this. Nothing. Literally nothing? Oh no, there's no usable front space here whatsoever. Oh, gee. All right, so no front space whatsoever underneath the hood of the Blazer. Just covers all over the place. The important one, you've got access in order to top up your wiper fluid along the left side. You've got the option for either an 85 kilowatt hour battery or there's a 102 kilowatt hour instead. When it comes to horsepower and torque numbers, for some mind-boggling reason, Chevrolet doesn't have the numbers posted anywhere easily accessible on their websites. I had to dig around like crazy, looking at forums, different websites to get an idea of what I'm looking at power-wise here. So this is the RS with the regular 85 kilowatt hour battery. And what that equates to power-wise, I believe, is 288 horsepower and 333 pound-feet of torque. So, got to get back up to highway speed here, putting myself into sport mode, and let's make it happen in 3, 2, and... 100. Okay. That thing's got some balls. Wow. That's actually kind of surprising. When you go for the 102 kilowatt hour rear wheel drive, that should bump it up to 340 horsepower, 324 pound-feet of torque, somewhere in that ballpark, I believe. And then as I mentioned, there's also the option for the upcoming SS trim level, which is going to push out 557 horsepower and an impressive 648 pound-feet of torque. And then the warranty inside of the Chevrolet world for the Blazer EV is pretty good. The basic is just a 3-year, 36,000 mile, 60,000 kilometer. But the hybrid EV components get bumped up to an impressive 8-year, 100,000 mile, 160,000 kilometer. And one nice thing about owning an EV is that you really don't have to do a ton of maintenance. Top up your wiper fluid, you'll have to change your tires a little bit more, and then brake servicing. But outside of that, you don't have to worry about quite as much as you would inside of the internal combustion version of this ride. You're going to find the Blazer EV available either all-wheel or rear-wheel drive. And that's going to depend on which trim level of the vehicle that you're in, because the entry level is strictly all-wheel versus the RS, you can find it all-wheel drive or with a larger battery as rear-wheel drive, which is going to give you a great amount of range. There are a series of different wheels that are available, so different styles and sizes. At a minimum, you're going for 19-inch. The RS is going to have 21-inch wheels standard, and then you're going to be able to bump up to a 22-inch blacked out wheel instead. And I love the look of that blacked out wheel because it's got more of like a split spoke traditional wheel look compared to the EV style that you're typically going to find in most electric vehicles. Charging for the Blazer EV is done just along the driver's side. You have to make sure that you're unlocked first and then just button push in order to drop down. So the mechanism there is straightforward. I'm curious what the long-term durability is going to be like here. Seems like it's okay, a little flimsy there. Should hold up. It does have support for level 1, level 2, and then level 3 DC supercharging. One thing that I love about the Blazer EV is that it comes with a 20-foot charge cable right from the factory that has support for level 1 and for level 2. And I love the way that Chevrolet has designed the charge cable itself, because rather than it being a combined level 1, level 2, you pull out the end that you want for either level 1 or 2 charging, which I think is great. Charge times for the vehicle are going to vary because there's the option for either an 85 kilowatt hour battery or 102 kilowatt instead. If you're charging up level 1, so at home that's my only option, I don't have a level 2 charger. Level 1 charging, realistically at a 1 kilowatt hour draw, to go from 0 to 100%, you're like 85 hours. If you go level 2, the charge times are going to vary depending on that power draw as well. Public charging for the most part around me is around 6 kilowatt. So to fill up this 85 from even 0 to let's say 80%, you're realistically looking at about 12 to 14 hours to make it happen. Maybe a little bit longer, but it's still pretty solid. And then as always, you've got DC supercharging as an option, up to 150 kilowatt draw, which means that you're charging up in 15 minutes, which is incredible. Now, whether or not you decide to look at a level 2 charge station at home is going to depend on your own personal driving habits, because if you're only traveling 20, 30 kilometers or 10, 20 miles a day, realistically just plug in when you get home and it'll be able to trickle charge overnight. The overall range that you get inside of the Blazer EV is also pretty solid, but it is based off of whether you're all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive and which battery. So inside of the 85 kilowatt hour, you're going to be around 449 kilometers or 279 miles. When you get into the rear-wheel drive version of the RS, that's going to give you an impressive 521 kilometer range or 324 miles. And then the upcoming SS, I believe, is going to be in the 465-ish kilometer range, which means you're 288-ish miles instead, which is pretty solid range that you're going to find inside of this vehicle. A little slow, but so cool at the same time. The rear end styling of the Blazer EV is simple. Nice rounded sides to it. The LED tail lamps look good. The black bumper, glossed out, I think also looks solid. There's a lot of rear end technology that you're going to find standard here as well. There's the rear wiper, the backup camera that's actually a dual camera setup, which is kind of cool. So there's a main backup camera and then one for a hitch view, which means that you can tow inside of this ride. The towing capacity inside of the Blazer EV is an impressive 3,500 pounds. But when you tow inside of an electric, doesn't matter if it's the Blazer or otherwise, it's going to negatively impact your overall range. How much it's going to affect it depends on how much you're towing. If you're 3,500 pounds, your range might get cut in half, especially if you're gunning it as you drive. So that's something you definitely need to take into account as you go. If you've just got a bike rack carrier, that's going to affect it a little bit, but if you've fully loaded the inside of the vehicle and you're towing, you should definitely expect your range to take a hit. Getting into the trunk of the vehicle can be done a few different ways. There's a button on the driver's door itself you can push. You can utilize the key fob. Just next to the backup cameras, there's also a button that you can push there. But one of my favorite features is a full hands-free liftgate, which Chevrolet does slightly different. So all you have to do, make sure the vehicle's locked. And you've got to get a reasonable distance away. A general rule of thumb is about 10 to 15 feet away for 10 to 15 seconds or so. And as long as you've got the key fob on you, all you're going to do is just walk up to the back end. You do have to make sure that the feature is enabled. So if you want to know how that's done, check in the description of the video. I freaking love that feature. Oh! Smart trunk. is a really useful one. And there's a few key reasons why, because unlike most manufacturers where it might be a swipe to open, if the sensors on that liftgate are covered in snow or ice, it won't work. But with this, it's going to work because it's based off of proximity. Absolutely love it. But in the trunk, there's nothing really off to the right side outside of a light. That's the exact same thing along the left. There's a little carpeted liner here. You do also have the option for a cargo tray if you really want it, so a thermoplastic rubber tray. But lifting this up, you do have the charge cable. As I mentioned, the charge cable itself does have support for level 1 and for level 2. And like I said, I just love the way that GM's done this. So if we look at the brick itself, there's a piece. All you're going to do, yank that out, and then you can select between either the level 1 or level 2. Just insert, and you're set to go. It's so useful. Now, one thing you're not going to find inside the vehicle is going to be a spare tire. It's not available whatsoever. So if you ever pop a tire, if you've locked yourself out, if your batteries died, you do have access to roadside assistance. And that's great coverage inside of this vehicle. 8 years, 100,000 mile, 160,000 kilometers. So it is available if you need it. If you popped a tire, you're going to have to get towed unless you can get the tow truck to change the tire for you right there. But having that roadside assistance service, very, very useful. I just love to see a mini spare tire inside of an electric, and I can't think of one offhand where it actually does come with a mini spare. But folding down the second row seats inside of the Blazer EV is straightforward. If you can reach it from the trunk, it's there, but you can also fold down the seats from the second row, assuming you don't need to get into the trunk. All you're going to do along the top, grab and push. Ooh, and there's a little cover you can push down as well. And there's a solid amount of space inside of the ride. The second row seats are technically locked into place, so you can't slide them forwards or backwards. But the measurements that you're looking at for behind the first row go from right where the liftgate would close to just in behind that little console between the first row seats. So if the driver's seat, passenger seat were forwards, backwards, you might gain or lose a couple of extra inches. The Blazer EV is not a big vehicle by any stretch. Like, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm close to towering over this ride, but getting into the first row, second row seats, straightforward. There you go. There is an assist handle that's right above the second row there as well, if you need help getting in or out. So there's a little auto lock feature. So if you've walked away without locking the vehicle, it'll do it automatically. Love that little light dances. It looks good as you approach at night. But along the side here, the mirrors do have the option for turn signals. On the door itself, you've got this little intelligent access button. So as long as the fob's on you, you can push there to either lock or unlock the door. So that's cool. There's a little icon there, so that's going to highlight it's the blind spot system. If somebody's entered the blind spot on either side, they're also heated and they're auto dimming. But hopping inside here, look at this. Ooh, the RS trim is nice. But you've got some good highlights here along the door, the option for driver's seat and side view mirror memory, and then basics like power folding side views, control your side views, window control, a button to open and close the trunk, a little bit of storage there. There are a few different seating materials that are available. So you've got this micro suede with an Evotex as well. So it's essentially a faux leather seat. But along the seat itself, you've got basics. So move the seat forwards, backwards, up and down, adjust the backrest. And then there's also two-way lumbar support. The stitching in the RS is kind of neat. That little red and blue traces all the way around. Then hopping inside. So hold on, look at this. So you can see there, it's almost got like a wood trim highlight there. Just kind of neat. And then on the inside, very like 90s 2000-esque with the color scheme inside of the vent. But here's something unique. So brake inside, we fully started the vehicle up. So there's no traditional power button anywhere inside of the Blazer EV. That can lead to one downside, and that if you open up, it's typically going to turn the car off, but you can also keep the vehicle on here for up to 60 minutes. Or you can turn the vehicle off this way instead. It's actually kind of neat. But yeah, there's so much. The steering wheel, I will give the Blazer EV this, is fairly comfortable. The cluster screen, I think, looks great. The infotainment screen looks great as well. But if you want full walkthroughs, like you want to know everything about the steering wheel buttons, the cluster screen, the infotainment, you'll find it down in the description of this video. Some highlights here. You've got the option for either traditional cruise, there's the option for adaptive cruise control, and then you've also got the option for Super Cruise, which this one unfortunately doesn't have. But it's full hands-free driving at that point with Super Cruise versus the adaptive, which is going to slow you down if the vehicle in front of you is braking. There's also this little guy here, and there's an option for a one-pedal drive mode. So you take your foot off the accelerator and you slow down very, very rapidly. Now this little guy is like a regen braking. So as you go to, like you take your foot off the accelerator, you're going to brake, you can hit the brake, or you can push and hold this little paddle, and that's going to slow you down, eventually putting you into an auto hold. So if you take your foot off the brake, the car's not going to move. It's actually kind of cool. There's a heated steering wheel, and then, oh yeah, you can see it there. A little head-up display as well. So if you've got a route going, that's going to show up in the head-up display. If you've got your cruise control system going, it'll show up there as well. It's actually kind of neat. The shifter here takes a little bit of getting used to. So you can pull towards you with the brake enabled in order to go into neutral, pop up for reverse, down for drive, P there in order to put yourself into park. So it's straightforward using it. But the system here is great overall. Like I said, I love the infotainment system. It's based off of Android OS. So it's not a GM proprietary software anymore. It's based off of Android. It has some benefits and downsides. The one downside, I'm going to say inside of the screen, it does not support Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. I know GM was talking about that about a year or two, actually maybe even longer, a couple of years ago now. I didn't think they were actually going to do it. So this is the first time I'm actually in a Blazer EV, and to know that Android Auto and Apple CarPlay aren't available, it's a little disappointing. You can still hook up over Bluetooth in order to use, like make phone calls and then for text messages and things like that. And you do have Google Maps as a default for the application inside this screen. You can also download Waze inside of the vehicle as well. So Waze is my go-to. So yeah, I'm super disappointed that Android Auto, Apple CarPlay are not available inside of this screen, but there are slight workarounds. So that's one thing that I would love to see put onto this screen. Pay the licensing fee, come on GM. But I really miss those features. But otherwise, so the screen itself is great. Navigation's there, and like I said, it is Google Maps based. Straightforward. Go back home simply there. There's audio available in different sources. So AM, FM, Sirius XM, Bluetooth, USB, Spotify is available. There are a boatload of different apps that you can download as well. It's like through the Play Store. Like there are so many. Hold on. It's going to load up here. So many different apps that are available. YouTube Music, iHeartRadio. So many different things. It's actually kind of cool. The Blazer EV, as of right now, only has a single speaker choice, and that's going to be a 6-speaker system. It's the only option available. The audio inside the ride is pretty good, so let's go through and listen to some USB music here. USB, actually one thing that I like is that you can adjust most of the icons here and the overall layout as well, but I'll show you that one in a second. So we're going to go songs, and let's listen to some different songs here. So the audio we're listening to is just coming out of my microphone. I can adjust the volume this way, which I do like, or this way. So the audio there, I would say, is pretty solid. If we go into, let's go this one here, drag it partway through the song.
Wake up. Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up. Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up. Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
I would say that that is pretty solid audio inside of the ride. There are some tricks in order to get the best possible audio, though, inside of the vehicle. If you go into your settings, and then you're going to go Vehicle, Audio Settings, and Sounds, you want your audio, I think this sounds good. The bass up a bit, the mid-range up 1, and the treble down by 2 leads to very good audio in this vehicle, in my opinion. That one's going to come down to a matter of personal preference, but playing around with this a little bit, I found that to give pretty good audio. Especially for a 6-speaker system, I think it's acceptable for most people. But you've got all sorts of different options for climate, so you can adjust your climate through the screen this way. There are options down here. So physical dials, you can use the touchpad here instead if you want to. For adjusting fan speed, there's the option for heated and ventilated first row seats inside of the ride as well. Like I said, you can adjust your fan speed a few different ways, which is kind of nice. Down low, you've got a bunch of different vent controls for the actual airflow itself. Strictly support for USB Type-C inside of the ride. But look at that. Deep. Tons of space there. So a little slidable tray, and you can see there's a little bit of storage along the back there. So there's no sunglasses holder, unfortunately, but just tossing them back there, it's available. From here, we've got some cup holders there. There's a wireless charge pad, and the armrest has a decent amount of space with a 12-volt power point, along with a USB-C port down there as well. Shooting across, you can see like there's this little faux carbon fiber highlight. That's the same that we saw. Well, it's along the passenger side door, driver's side door there as well. But straightforward here. Shooting across, you can see there a little assist handle. Up over top, it's a GM vehicle, so you've got your GM, so your OnStar mode, SOS mode, 4-way blinkers. You've got your buttons for your lights as well. And then from there, you've got your, oh, look at that, fully digital rear view mirror. Love that. So you can go traditional rear view that has auto dimming functionality, or go into your traditional or your fully digital instead. You can adjust the brightness if you want to. You could zoom in or out as well, move it up and down, or just go old school. From there, got a little ticket receipt holder on the inside, or sorry, actually the outside, I should say. Little vanity mirror, lights built in over top there. And then this extends out, blocking most of the sun that might be hitting your face. Now, one thing I need to make sure I do, keep vehicle on here, because otherwise I open up the door and the car would turn off. Oh, what do you think? Interior there is kind of nice. I do like that dual screen setup, but along the back here, you're not going to find door shades at all. You'll find that same highlight along the door, stitching there with a little bottle holder. Hopping inside. Ooh. Okay, so with the driver's seat set up for myself being 6 feet tall, second row, I've got a good amount of knee space, foot space, and head space is surprisingly good. So I've got 3.5 inches of head space here. Solid. In the back, you've got a little assist handle on both the passenger and the driver's side. There's a little light control up overhead there as well. Just good. Down low, you've got some HVAC controls, a few USB Type-C power points, and then you've also got heated outboard seats with 3 different levels. And that's just heated outboard. So the middle seat here is never going to be heated. See there, it's also a flat floor. So, ooh, interesting. And the reason why I said interesting is because I hopped into the middle seat and I like sunk down a little bit. The middle seat is not comfortable by any stretch. The cushion is definitely not there. But doesn't matter because you've got all of the necessary tether points there, anchor points down below, tether points in behind the seats. I've got some cup holders built right into the seat as well. It's straightforward back here. Good amount of space, which I like. Up overhead again, turning those lights off. Ooh, oh, that's why. It's like, why aren't you turning off? Nice and slow, subtle instead. But like overall, the space inside of the vehicle here is pretty good. And actually, I just realized I didn't do max space in the first row. So, all right, hold on. With the seat as far down as it's going to go. There we go. Seat as far down as it's going to go. Oh, wow. What's that? Like almost 6 inches of headspace. That's wild. So I'm 6 feet tall, like I said. So you're 6'5", 6'6", you'll probably comfortably be able to sit inside of this ride. En route handling. Pretty solid. Overall, I would say that the ride quality inside of the Blazer EV is pretty solid. Comfortable. The cabin is fairly quiet. You hear a little bit of road noise, but I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad by any stretch, and I'm at highway speeds right now. But the handling, it's actually really responsive. Wow, like surprisingly responsive. Hold on, I got to do a little 180 and see. Ooh, that steering wheel. Ooh. Okay, turning radius on it is great, and yeah, like I said, the handling, it's just super responsive, and this isn't even in the sport mode. Chevy, Damn, that is impressive. Very nice. So, do you look at the Blazer EV as your next ride? It's going to depend on what you find important. If you don't care about Android Auto or Apple CarPlay and are okay with a vehicle that's a little bit pricier, it could be a good option. It is pretty well designed, it's well engineered, and it has great handling. Would like to see a little bit more power though for the price that this vehicle's at. So it's either got to have more power or a cheaper price. Ideally a little bit of both. But you can find a build link for this Blazer down in the description, along with links off to Chevrolet Canada and USA. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and until I see you next time, take care. You're going to find the Blazer EV available either real world, so like futuresque, the mechanism. Any electric, it is going to negatively impact your overall range. I was going to say fuel economy.